It's so
Thanks for
hard
your
as a
patience.
parent to know, like, what is a problem, what is normal, how it's
Mhm.
supposed to be like. So that I think is something that my clients find very valuable is just to have someone there to be like, this is normal, this will pass, and this is maybe something that you want to talk to a doctor or a lactation consultant about. I think that is very helpful, even on the emotional side, because it's true that you can hear a lot of conflicting information and that can get confusing. And at the same time, you may have people supporting you, but they're very emotionally invested in making sure you do things in a certain way. And so, as a postpartum doula, I'm there to support you in figuring out what works for you and not to pressure you into doing one thing or another.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. So, this episode, we're going to dig into what life is going to look like or is like if you're already a mom once you have kids. I hear so much from my clients, the female ones, how much they changed and how much they need to adjust and transition when they go from being just a woman, a wife, to being a mom, and how much they feel like their spouse just don't understand them. And so I have here my new friend, Heather Magill. She is a specialist in all of things postpartum. She is a postpartum doula and she is a matrescence educator. So if you're not familiar with matrescence is, we will get into that. No worries. But thank you so much for being here, Heather. I'm so excited to get to talk about this with you because I think that this topic can't be talked about enough. I think that more moms need to be aware of what all is going on, that they're not crazy, that there is a way for them to understand what's going on better and talk about it more with their spouse. So, welcome to the show, Heather. Can you please share with those who are new to you where you live, how old your kids are, and what led you to become a postpartum doula and a matrescence educator? Thanks, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here. I live on the North Shore of Boston, so I'm about 30 minutes north of Boston. I have 3 kids. They are 11, 14, and 17. And I first kind of stumbled upon postpartum doula work when my oldest was a baby, and I had a much more challenging transition into motherhood than I expected. So, about a year later, when I discovered that this was actually a career that some people did to help new moms, and I had gotten a lot of help from my mom that made a huge difference in my experience. So, seeing that I could do that and have that kind of a difference in the lives of other moms and families really spoke to me. And so then I slowly took on some trainings and began to work a little bit when my children were younger. And now that they're older, I've been able to focus on that more as they've grown. And I also came upon this idea of matrescence a few years ago, and that really spoke to me, being able to just have the vocabulary to understand my experience in a new way. And I think that's something that has made such a huge difference for me personally, and so it means a lot to me to be able to help other moms on the same journey. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like
there's a big spectrum with new moms, right? They either have a ton of help or they don't have any help. And I think it's important, whatever experience you want as a new mom, I think it's important to know what your options are, especially if you don't live with your family, right? Having someone like Heather could be really helpful. And also, I know when you're a new mom or when you are needing things, it's hard to know exactly what to ask for and hard to know what people are even willing to do for you or what's available out there. And so, can you share with people what a postpartum doula is?
Yeah. So a postpartum doula is a person who supports a family through the transition of having a baby. So a lot of people know what a birth doula is, who provides non-medical, emotional, education and support during the birth. And a postpartum doula does very similar things, but mostly at home after the birth when the family comes home from the hospital and they get the message basically from their care providers, "We'll see you in 6 weeks. Good luck." And hopefully, ideally everyone would have a great support network in terms of family and friends and people who are able to step in and help them. But for all sorts of reasons, that's not always the case. And so a postpartum doula is a professional who is able to help fill those types of gaps in care. And so one thing that I do is I do help connect families to other resources in the community that they may not be aware of. And I also give mom and dad a little break sometimes so they can go sleep or take a shower or that sort of thing. I answer a lot of questions. There's always tons of questions, and help out with just all the things around the house that you just need another pair of hands after you have a baby. So sometimes I'll do meal prep or fold laundry, that type of thing as well. And often I do overnights as well. So I support parents in getting sleep during the night when they have a newborn at home.
That's incredible. I wish I had one because that was rough with my son because he had latch problems, which I wasn't aware of. And then he really would cry a lot. It felt like it took longer to put him down than he actually slept. And so that was like really a lot on
Yeah.
me. I felt like I was going nuts because I wasn't getting any sleep. And when I was sleeping, I was getting very broken sleep until we sorted that out. But I think that's really helpful to know. It's almost like having someone come in, but they actually know what they're doing. They like studied things to know the proper way to do things and instead of just what has been passed down.
And it's so hard as a parent to know, like, what is a problem, what is normal, how it's supposed to be like. So that I think is something that my clients find very valuable, is just to have someone there to be like, This is normal, this will pass, and this is maybe something that you want to talk to a doctor or a lactation consultant about." So I think that is very helpful. And even on the emotional side, because it's true that you can hear a lot of conflicting information and that can get confusing. And at the same time, you may have people supporting you, but they're very emotionally invested in making sure you do things in a certain way. And so, as a postpartum doula, I'm there to support you in figuring out what works for you and not to pressure you into doing one thing or another.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're also like an advocate, but also you can help moms and parents kind of screen their worries through you. So, and you could say like, okay, yes, this is something you should worry about and take action, or this is something that you don't need to worry about. That must be a huge help because I remember when I first brought my son home, I had so many questions. There's only so much you can do to prepare for a new baby. And then they come and say, I didn't know I was going to have this or that, or what this means, or what do I do in response to this? Is this normal? And it's like, I never knew I could have so many questions or feel so uncertain about life.
I worked with a mom one time who said to me, "My husband told me that I'm constantly asking, is this normal? Is this normal? Is that normal?"
It's,
Yes. Yes, that is very normal.
oh, I love that. Okay, so let's now shift over to matrescence. I'm familiar with this term only because I met a matrescence expert years and years ago. And once I heard what this term was and what it represents, I was like, I feel so seen because, well, I'll let you. I'll let you share with people what it means because I know a lot of people still don't know what it means because unless you're in the world of coaching, you may not know what it means. So, can you share what is matrescence?
Yeah, I think matrescence is really kind of a key to the puzzle, and it unlocks a lot of understanding just about the experience. And I think the easiest way to think about matrescence is the word that it's related to is adolescence. So, adolescence, as we all know, is the process of becoming an adult, changing from a child into an adult. It takes years. It affects you on all levels, physical, hormonal, emotional. It affects your identity, your relationship with the world and your roles in the world. And we can all recognize that and see that. And we see someone behaving in a certain way and we're like, that's a teenager. This is a teenage experience. And so if we apply that to the process of becoming a mother, that's matrescence. And it again affects every facet of our identity and our experience. And it takes years. It's an ongoing process. We find ourselves doing things that maybe, are surprising. Like, is this like, who am I? Like, what is this? What's happening to me? And so if we can see that through the lens of matrescence for this developmental, complicated, time consuming process, I think it's like that's what's happening. And everyone I talk to and just explain what matrescence is, every single person who is a mother is like, yeah, like I get it. This is what happened to me. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, are there specific like phases that you can point to that like kind of falls under a typical journey for matrescence? So, like, obviously, you get pregnant, right? I'm going to assume that's where it is.
And I think it does, like, different people have different ideas and definitions of exactly what matrescence looks like. Um, to me, I think it can apply to your whole life as a mother. It's similar to the word postpartum, which just means after birth. So you've given birth. The rest of your life is after you gave birth. So there's kind of the acute phase right after you have a baby. And some people will just say that is postpartum, like that's the matrescence phase, maybe 6 weeks or 3 months or a year. And that's definitely a phase and it's very intense. And you're dealing with the demands of a newborn and all those things we were talking about. So you're not only experiencing this transition of matrescence, but you're also recovering from childbirth. You are figuring out how to take care of a baby. You are doing it all on no sleep. So all of those things. So there's a very acute um, phase of matrescence. And then I think over time, it still continues. And sometimes I think of it for me like a spiral. And you keep spiraling back around to these different, every time your child has a different phase of life. Again, once they start walking or stop breastfeeding or go to school, or graduate from school. My oldest is a senior in high school now, and I feel like I'm going through another matrescence transition, um, because it's another reworking of my identity and my role and my relationships. So I think it's something that really we can be working through for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. And everyone's experience of it is and can be so different, right? I know
Yes.
some people, you look at them and they like literally enjoy all of it. Like, and I'm like, how do you make it look so easy? I feel like I kind of like stumble through it. Like, I'll have my moments where I'm like, yes, I am killing it. And then something happens where it's like, no, you don't know shit. And it's like, that's my experience. Just like feel like I'm on a high, and then I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I mean, maybe those people feel that way too, and they just don't want to show it, or they're not being honest with themselves. I don't know what it is, but that's genuinely my experience of motherhood, and I feel it's always been like that. Can we talk about what common assumption moms may carry into motherhood that are affecting their experience, and how those assumptions are affecting their marriage?
And I think this is a really big thing that needs to be talked about more, and it's something that we all have inside of us, but we don't always recognize it, and being able to just put it into words and communicate about our assumptions. And one of the big keywords that stands out for me is always should. I should be doing this. I should, this should be happening this way. My life should look this certain way. My children should be sleeping through the night when they're 4 months old. Like anytime you find that word should, um, is kind of a flag to me that like, this is, this is an assumption. And, um, it's time to maybe just stop and think about that a little bit more, because it's so easy to absorb those things and we don't even necessarily know where we pick them up, from books or social media or TV or parents as we were growing up. It just seems like a natural thing. But most of the time when we think, this should be this way, it's not necessarily something that is really true for us, but it's something that someone external to us is saying that things should be um, a certain way. So I think just having those assumptions, and as long as we're not aware of them, anytime reality isn't matching up with the assumption, um, we have these reactions that are not helpful. And either we start blaming ourselves, blaming someone else, feeling guilty that you're not doing what you should be doing, and I think that can have such a negative effect on our relationship with ourselves, our partners, our children, and all of it.
Yeah, I think the combination of people growing up as people pleasers and also this introduction of mothering during social media, like the era of social media, is a dangerous combination, because we can start to feel the pressure to conform and be like, oh, this is how most people I am exposed to are doing it. So, like, does that mean I should be doing it? Rather than asking themselves, is this the way that I want to do it? How do I want to do things? Like, of course, there's helpful aspects of social media and even like knowing what to look out for. I think
Mhm.
that's really helpful. But when it comes to like, I don't know, for me, I'm personally not a huge like go all out for parties and decorations and stuff for like my kids. Like, I've never been like that. I didn't grow up like that. And so like when I see other people do it, I'm like, that's amazing if you like it.
Yeah.
But then there are people who are like me who aren't interested in that. And then they feel the pressure to step into that because they have equated that to being the definition or the picture perfect way of being a good mom. And I think we need to stop measuring ourselves to what we see other people do and really like come back to ourselves and think, what do I think is a good mom and what makes a good mom? And I think it just comes down to like, just love your kids, honestly, right? Love them, keep them safe, and just do your best. I mean, the kids really don't need a whole lot.
And I think, one of the most important things kids do need is just a mom who is there, who is happy, who is present with
Wow.
them, who is, doing things that make her happy and is not constantly stressed out and chasing all of these ideals that are unrealistic. And, our kids are watching us and they're seeing how we live life and how we interact. And nobody is going to be perfect. And it's not saying that we should never make mistakes, but I think it is important to model the type of life that we want our children to have when they grow up and to be that kind of person who is able to do what's important to them and to focus on a life that is meaningful to them and not trying to achieve some ideal good mom really doesn't relate to them at all.
Yeah. And it's actually really freeing
Yeah.
when you unsubscribe to that idea, right? Because think about when you want to do something, you are going to be really excited and motivated to do it. It's almost like you have this like surge of energy to go accomplish that thing. But when you don't want to do something, it's like it feels so much more challenging and you drag your feet to do it. If you could just kind of like notice how you respond to things and
Yeah.
be more authentic to yourself, you're going to shed a lot of pressure and even like anxiety and frustration because you're just going to be doing things that you think align to your family values. And
Yeah.
I think we need to be more bold as parents and think about, well, what's good for my family, not how do other families do it, and chase this made up construct of how life should be. Like every family gets to be different. And now that it's us in the driver's seat, like because we're the parents, we get to decide what we want to carry forward from tradition and what we want to create as new tradition in our family because every family is different, even from your family of origin to the family that you have created. That's also different because you have different people in it. So I think that can be so freeing for you, for your family. Can we talk more about like how the shoulds impact our partnership with our spouse?
Yeah. And I think there's so many different ways that can be too. And, personally, if you're thinking I should be doing things a certain way and that's not working out for you, the default is to blame ourselves, right? So if someone is saying, oh, you should be happy when you lay them down, it shouldn't be crying so much, and that doesn't happen, then it's like, oh, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? And instead of thinking like, why? Why am I expecting my baby to behave in this certain way? Not all babies are the same. So if we start blaming ourselves and thinking that we're doing something wrong, obviously that's going to show up in our relationships and with our partner, especially if we're not articulating it, but we're just kind of living out those feelings of frustration or guilt or whatever it is. And then also, we have more of these unspoken shoulds as far as our partner and what they should and shouldn't be doing and how they should be feeling. And we don't have any more control over that than we do over how our baby is acting. So I think we're never going to be able to completely get away from these ideas because we all have all these assumptions. But if we're able to just articulate them and recognize them for what they are and realize that's not going to match up necessarily with experience and just being able to have that communication about how we think things should be or not. And once you realize that you have this assumption, then you can choose. You can be like, yeah, that makes sense to me. I want to go along with it. Or you can say, this is an external thing that someone else has put on me. This doesn't matter. Um, so yeah, I think just having that awareness and being able to kind of catch yourself in these thoughts makes such a huge difference.
It does. And I know for new moms, they often have a hard time being able to just like articulate their experience and why their feelings off are different. So, how can couples navigate this new journey of being parents more connected as a couple? Because I know the relationship shifts so much after you bring a baby home, after you add to the family. I mean, that's what my whole thing is about as a marriage coach, right? Like, I support clients who have had difficulty finding themselves or finding their way back to each other because now they have less energy and less time, and their marriage has essentially taken a back seat to what's louder, which are the kids and their responsibilities. So, what can new moms, and I'll even say new dads, because it's not all up to just women to do this, but how can new moms start to understand and articulate to their partners what's going on with them and the level of support that they're needing? And how can the other partner be more supportive if they have no idea what's needed and their partner's struggling to share what's going? They just know that something needs to be done, but they don't know exactly what.
Yeah, that's definitely a tricky situation to be in. And I feel like, you know, most people, or in my experience, the people that I work with, they do have the best intentions and they want to be there, but sometimes there's kind of crossed wires. And that's why I think talking about these things, especially matrescence and these experiences, I know for myself when I had my first baby before he was born, basically my assumption was it's going to be my life, but with a baby. I had lots of experience babysitting. I was familiar with being around kids, and I was completely unprepared just for all the rest of it. So the baby part was the easy part. Everything else was the hard part. But think that for my husband, it really was his life plus a baby. And obviously, it wasn't easy for him either. And he had a lot to learn as far as taking care of babies, and he didn't have the same experiences that I did. But at the same time, I feel like he also wasn't necessarily aware of the other things that were going on with me. And I really wasn't either. Experientially, I was, but I didn't have the vocabulary to talk about it. And so I think that is very important. And that's part of um, why I think I enjoy educating people about matrescence and just helping moms be able to talk about their experiences, because that's a big part of it. And just for the partners, I think that just being there and not just physically being present, but really observing and paying attention, I think is a really big thing, and not waiting to be like asked to do something specific, but noticing if something needs to be done and then doing it. And it sounds very basic, but it's something that it's easy to overlook. And I think just doing those specific things and not necessarily relying on someone else to tell you, like, oh, can you go get toilet paper at the store? But like noticing that the toilet paper is running low and ordering more toilet paper, and just being able to take things off of the mom's plate, right? So that has more mental and emotional energy to focus on what she's going through and not having to keep up with all the details of everything else.
Yeah, I think if you're not already talking about this in your marriage, talking about mental load,
Mhm.
talking about all the things that you do, because once you do have kids, your capacity to do things will shift naturally because kids take up a lot, right? And so if you have a partner who has less experience in this world with like having kids and being around kids and what they're needing, then obviously, yes, they deserve some grace. And I think a lot of us women tend to assume responsibility because it's like, oh, well, I have more experience because I've been raised this way to notice things. I have been around kids more. So I'm just going to do this because it's easier if I do it, or it's easier for me. So I'm just going to do it. Well, if you don't give them the opportunity, they're not going to get as good as you. And so I kind of like to think of it as, when you start to give your kids responsibilities, at first we kind of can see them as too young, right? But when you take a look at what is actually involved with doing these tasks, and then you're like, wait a minute, they are capable of doing. Why aren't they doing it yet? Right? So like I was just interviewing someone else recently and I was like, oh, you're right. My son could totally do laundry at this point. I don't know why he doesn't yet. Like, because what is doing laundry? It's putting his clothes in the machine, putting detergent, pressing a button, moving said clothes to the dryer, pressing another button, moving the clothes into a basket and putting it away. He's already putting away his clothes. He's able to handle complex things on video games. He can absolutely work a washer and dryer. So it's like same thing for your husband or for your partner. Give them the opportunity to excel and master things just like you. Will they fumble through it and have questions? Sure. But at least if you give them the opportunity in the long run, you will have a true partner who can backfill you if you're down. Let's say you're having a stressful week, or let's say you're sick. Like, I would hate for you to think that your house is just going to internally combust because you are down. Like, in theory, you guys should be able to still run the house when someone's down, right? Maybe less so because you're at reduced capacity, but let's not sell them short on what they're capable of doing. Because if you married someone and they're supposed to be there for you, they're your life partner, they would be happy to support you. But a lot of times it's just a matter of giving them the chance to, right? This means no hovering, no criticizing, right? Just letting them find their way. I know it's easier said than done if you're not used to this, but trust me, like this is your ticket to not feeling burned out.
Yeah. And you use the word assume responsibility. And it's that assumption again that this is our job. And there are two adults in the room. And like you said, it's not always easy at first. And I catch myself doing this with my kids all the time. I do things for them because I'm used to doing those things for them. Not because they can't do it for themselves, but, if my kid asks for like a glass of water, obviously when they're 1, 2 years old and they want water, you give them water. But when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm so much in the habit of just going to get them water and I have to stop myself, be like, you can get yourself a glass of water. This is something that you are able to do. And so I think a lot of times it feels easier in the moment to just do it. But overall, building up those habits, like I said, with my oldest, he's a senior in high school. And a couple of years ago, I taught him how to do his laundry. And now when his dirty laundry is full, he just does his laundry. And I tell him, like, you're going to college next year. And I had zero concerns about you being able to take care of your laundry because you just do it. Like obviously it was kind of a pain at first. And there's that rough patch where like, sometimes it's easier to just do it yourself instead of having to put up with resistance to that transition. But yeah, now when he goes to college, I'm completely confident that he will be able to take care of his laundry. And, eventually maybe he'll get married and have kids, and doing laundry is not going to be a big deal for him because it's just something he's done ever
Yes,
since
I
he
will
was.
say my husband does the laundry in our house, and it's wonderful because I hate laundry and he's more particular about doing laundry. So I'm like, you get to own that. And it truly is a disservice if you're not leveraging your household as a team, right? What happens in a team? Everyone does their part, right? You are not the only team member in your team. Like, no one should be benefiting off of your burden, right? So, like, like the game show, The Weakest Link, like, I always think about that, right? Your family's only as strong as the weakest link. And so, are you setting your family up for success by you also mattering to yourself, right? I've gotten into the habit now of when my kids, so the kids that I live with, I have 3 kids, but I live with 2, 9-year-old and a 5.5-year-old. When they ask me to do something and I'm already doing something, before I would stop what I was doing and then I would go help. Now I'm like, I think about, are they capable of doing this? If they are, then I'll say, well, you can do it yourself and get it right away, or you can wait till I'm done with what I'm doing and then I can help you. And so 9 times out of 10, they don't want to wait for me because I'm doing something that's going to take a while. So they go and do it. And I will say it helps them build confidence, knowing that they're capable of doing things.
Yeah.
And also, like, I was one of those kids that went to college and I didn't know how to do laundry. I had to learn because I was like, oh, I'm about to go to college. Like, I need to learn. My mom, because of how she grew up, like, she had to do all the chores in Chinese culture, at least when she grew up. Boys were prized, didn't do anything. She was the youngest girl. She did all the chores, right? Like, all of them for the family. And so she wanted to save my sister and I by sparing us and allowing us to have a childhood where we got to have fun and not worry about that stuff. But that was a disservice to us in the long run because I went out to live on my own and I didn't know how to do a lot of things. I had to learn and it was kind of embarrassing. And now I'm swinging to the opposite end. I'm like, oh, no, those are not going to be my kids. They are going to know how to live on their own and I need to set them up so that they are going to be capable of doing all of the things. And so don't be afraid to leverage your kids. There's chore charts that you can look at, like, oh, what can a 3-year-old do? What can an 8-year-old do? And start working your way up because it's setting them up to be a successful adult.
Yeah.
Don't think about it as like, oh, it's robbing them of their childhood. They have plenty of time to play. Okay. It's okay for them to do dishes. It's okay for them to do their own laundry.
Yeah. And that comes back to this whole idea of a good mom too, right? A good mom
Yes.
takes care of everything. A good mom does this, looks like this. And is that really what a good mom is? Or is that what other people are telling you that a good mom is? And why do they get to decide what it looks like for you to be a good mom? And a lot of it has to do, you being responsive to the situation too. You talked about how you used to drop everything and go do what your kid asked you to do. And if you have a baby who's a month old and they start crying, then yes, you do drop everything most of the time. There's extremes for everything, but you do need to attend to their needs relatively quickly. And I think we get into this habit of doing it. So even as our children grow and develop and become more capable, we just continue relating to them in the same way. And so it is, and with partners too, if you're in the habit of always being the person who um, cooks dinner every night, and it's just something that's easy to do because you just do it without thinking about it. But then in the long run, like you said, you could get burned out and um, overwhelmed or whatever. And so building these types of things in on a regular basis, because you're not the only adult in the room.
No, absolutely not. Now, back to, new moms having trouble articulating certain things. With experience, like as you have more kids, you kind of have a better idea of what to anticipate. And plan for those things. Be like, okay, first time around, I
Mhm.
didn't know what I was doing. Now I know what to expect, and I'm going to need you to do X, Y, Z. I need you to step up in these ways as I, move through the fourth trimester and settle into my groove with, a baby and having more kids. And it's cool. But as a new mom, what are some helpful, specific talking points that you recommend that they talk about beforehand? Or if they're knee deep in it, talk about right now.
And I do think it's important to figure out, or at least have a rough idea of what you're going to need. And if you don't have your baby yet, it may end up being completely different. But you know that you're going to need some sleep. You know that you're going to need to eat. Like there are those basic things, and just kind of communicating and figuring out strategies. And there's different ways to do it. And there's ways that, maybe you're prioritizing wanting to breastfeed, maybe not. That's going to change how you approach a situation. But I think really figuring out what is like the one thing that I need. And this is something I talk to clients with, like, especially at the beginning, if I'm spending some hours with them during the day, I'm like, what is like number one on your list right now? What do you need? Have you had something to eat today? Like, what is causing you the most stress? And just like, okay, let's figure out a way to get that done. And like, we don't have to do all of the things. It doesn't matter necessarily if there's like 4 baskets of laundry. Like, that doesn't have to be your top priority. You don't have to, do all the things, but let's figure out what is like the most important thing for you right now in this moment, and how can we make that happen. And so I think just being able to figure out what you need and ask for it is a really big one.
I feel
And
like
it's not easy.
I feel like you can even say like, okay, I'm going to take care of the baby and I need you to take care of me.
Yes.
Like that could make it really simple. And they can ask for, exactly what you mean. Like you could be like, okay, well, obviously I'm going to be feeding the baby, whether formula or nursing, whatever your style is. I need you to make dinner and lunch and breakfast for me and remind me to go to sleep, or you take baby for time because I will, go to sleep, because with babies, you just never
Mhm.
know if they're going to sleep. Um, I mean, yeah, for me, my husband, I made it his job to make sure I had water in every place that I would sit down or spend several hours. So, like, I had a water by the couch, I had a water on my nightstand, I had a water by the rocking chair windowsill where I would nurse and like get the baby ready for sleep. Uh, Even something as specific as anytime we have to go out, because, you have doctor's appointments or you got to go run errands, for them to pack the bag,
Mhm.
all the baby things, making sure that you have snacks, making sure you're good to go, going to do the grocery store run or Target runs or Costco runs, like wherever you need to shop. There are plenty of things that your partner can do that you can delegate out.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to do it all. Like you having a baby, recovering, feeding the baby, all of that is a lot of work. So
Yeah.
don't try and add that to the list of things that you are doing prior to baby.
Mhm. Yeah. And even having a list can be really helpful. Um, if you haven't had the baby yet, make a list of all the things, just all the daily things you do every day to keep the house going, and, feeding the pets and watering the plants and doing the laundry, and just write it all down. So it's all written. Write down, if there's things that need to be done, even just kind of organizing. If you have other people in your community who are willing to bring you meals or go grocery shopping or come over and help out, that can be your husband's job too, when they come over, to ask them to do something that needs to be done. Or to make sure every time you sit down to feed the baby, like you said, you have water and a snack on hand. Or to have that time of day, or something that a lot of families will do is even to coordinate sleep schedules. So maybe mom goes to bed at 7 or 8 in the evening. Um, and if dad likes to stay up late, then he's in charge of the baby until 2 a.m. or something like that. And then if baby's sleeping, then he can go to bed. But if anytime baby wakes up during that window, he's up with the baby. And then from 2 to whenever, or vice versa, however it works out for your family. But if you each have that designated chunk of time to sleep, that can make a huge difference.
Yeah. I have clients who don't have kids yet, and they was like, okay, but we don't have to deal with those things because we're going to hire out. I'm like, I love that for you. I wasn't in that position, but the dad, you can coordinate all of that. You can be the point of contact for the house cleaner, for the doula, for all of that. So like, there's still things that you can do that still weigh on us as women, because again, we carry so much of the mental load just naturally, because that's what we have been taught to do, to observe and notice and to like be aware of what everybody needs. So there's all of that. Like, even if you are hiring out and you're fortunate enough to have a full team behind you, there's still stuff that you can do to support your partner.
Yeah, 90% of the time, when I hear from parents who are looking to hire me as a doula, it's the moms. But sometimes I'll get an inquiry from a dad, or I'll show up to do an overnight at 10 o'clock at night, and dad is there hanging out with the baby, and mom has been asleep for hours. And it's like, there's still those ways, just taking something off her plate.
Yeah. And I want to see more couples doing that. Okay. Because that's cool. I love that. I'm done having kids, but I love that so much. Heather, thank you so much for sharing what matrescence is with listeners and helping them prepare or even navigate life as parents. Because like I said, this transition it's almost like, I don't know, you can prepare all you want, and then it's more of like a sink or swim situation, right? Like, you don't know what your baby's going to be like. You don't know what kind of, I guess it's better summed up as like, you don't know what you don't know. That's kind of what parenthood is. And I would love for you to share with us about your online course community, Untangling Motherhood. I know that's something that you love to offer to people in your circle. Can you share with the listeners what the community is and what they can get out of it if they join?
Yeah. So this really came up for me, just with the questions, just noticing how we all tend to have these same basic struggles as moms. We all feel like, we're not doing a good enough job. We all feel like we're isolated. We don't have as much community connections. There are exceptions, but for the most part, we have these common issues in our culture, and just trying to dig into like, why do we all feel this way and what we can do about it. And so Untangling Motherhood is about picking apart those cultural influences that the shoulds and the voices that are coming into our lives and making us feel like we're not doing a good enough job, and just building a community and finding the other moms out there who are wondering the same things. Why is this so hard? How can I figure out my way of doing motherhood and my way of being a good mom and feel like I actually am doing a good job with this? So it's a combination of weekly lessons that you can do on your own time, kind of just little bite-sized bits to think about during the week. If questions for journaling, if that's something that you want to do, or little bits of sustainable self-care that you can work into your week, knowing that for all of us, we feel overwhelmed and we have a lot to do. So the point isn't to put one more thing on our plate that we feel bad about not doing well enough, but to just pick and choose what is helpful and how we want to incorporate that into our own life. And then also regular Zoom community calls where we can just hang out and talk about it and talk about how we're feeling and get to know each other and show up with a crying baby or in our pajamas or whenever. It is not about getting straight A's in a class. It's about really just digging into what we need and how we can make that work in our own lives.
Love that. Love that. For those who want to learn more about you and what you support families with, can you please share with the listeners where they can find you and connect with you?
So my business is called Infant Concierge, and my website, infantconcierge.com, has information both about postpartum doula services and the Untangling Motherhood program. And I am also at Infant Concierge on Instagram and Facebook.
Perfect. Okay, listeners, if you have loved what she shared and you're like, I think I could benefit from Heather supporting our family, please go reach out to her. Let her know you found her from this show. Heather, thank you so much for joining us and teaching us all the things. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share this with them. Better yet, share this in your Instagram stories and tag us so that we can give you a shout out. And if you love this show, please leave a rating and review on the podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen. I would so appreciate it. I love reading it. And that's what helps this show grow and more women like you to get the help that they need. All right. That's it for now. I hope that you have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.